They've dropped future plot hints and introduced new characters, and sometimes left us all hanging. But one thing's for sure, the only way to understand the true importance of all the MCU post-credit scenes is to watch all the way to the end. The Iron Man post-credit scene kicked off the whole Avengers franchise and set up the MCU as a whole. But Nick Fury almost didn't say anything about the Avengers initiative. Several different lines were recorded, but in the end, they chose to tease a superhero team-up film, with the implication that Fury had been working on this for a while. Fans would later learn he'd been working on it since 1995, after the events of Captain Marvel took place, when he first drafted his proposal. Which begs the question as to why it took Fury so long to get off his butt and wrangle up some superheroes. Carol Danvers went off-world, but she could have been called under the right circumstances. Hank Pym was also around, though may have been too depressed to follow Janet Van Dyne going missing to engage in any heroics, especially after his fallout with S.H.I.E.L.D. It seems that Fury just happened to get very lucky that a group of superheroes made themselves known right before an alien army invaded New York City. There is another explanation for why Fury sat on this plan for so long, but it has its own problems. In 2012's The Avengers, Fury mentions how S.H.I.E.L.D. intended to use the Tesseract to build an arsenal and protect the planet. He then reveals that creating a team of superheroes was considered riskier than using the Tesseract. So why would getting a group of heroes together be riskier than toying with alien technology? Well, the events of Thunderbolt show what could have gone wrong when the Avengers were formed, but even that might have been less risky than messing with an Infinity Stone turned out to be. The plan of an interconnected cinematic universe became clearer later in 2008 with The Incredible Hulk. That post-credit scene sees the return of Tony Stark, this time visiting General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross in a bar to discuss plans of putting together a team. For anyone blown away by Iron Man, it was neat to see Stark again so soon, but the scene doesn't make a ton of sense upon rewatch. Why is Stark the one sent to talk with Ross rather than someone who actually works for S.H.I.E.L.D.? Why is he even talking to Ross in the first place, since Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, is on the run? The post-credits scene in The Incredible Hulk seems so hastily put together because it kind of was. Director Louis Leterrier told Collider that they only had 5 hours to shoot something with Robert Downey Jr., saying, "They had like half a day where they could give us half a day, so I just directed the Iron Man crew for 1 day." It clearly couldn't be anything too extensive, and any lingering questions were eventually answered by the 2011 Marvel one-shot, The Consultant. This short film sees Phil Coulson meet with Jasper Sitwell about how the World Security Council wants the abomination for the Avengers after the Hulk is blamed for Harlem's destruction at the end of The Incredible Hulk. Fury doesn't want that, so they intentionally sabotage the assignment by sending Stark to annoy Ross so that he won't cooperate. It's a clever retcon to explain Stark's role by claiming they were talking about abomination rather than the Hulk all along.
The consultant outdid himself. Ross got so mad he tried to have him removed from the bar.
The build-up that began with the Iron Man post-credit scene paid off with 2012's The Avengers. The world got to see Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America team up on the big screen, paying off years of teasers. What no one knew going into the film was that The Avengers was really just the beginning. It's a big universe out there, and one of the post-credit scenes for that film sees the introduction of Thanos. The other tells Thanos one thing about humans.
To challenge them is to court death.
It's actually a nod to Thanos' desire in the comics to make the personification of death fall in love with him. One of the many things about comic book Thanos that ultimately didn't actually make it into the MCU. The reason he wants to wipe out half of the universe in the comics is to impress death. Apparently, those involved in the MCU thought this was too weird. Instead, the film franchise gave Thanos a more comprehensible justification for snapping away half of existence. He wants to ensure there are enough resources to go around. Naturally, Joss Whedon wouldn't have known this when penning the screenplay for the Avengers, so he leaned on the comics. Death would eventually be introduced in the MCU, portrayed by Aubrey Plaza in Agatha All Along. Of course, this came way too late to be linked back to the Mad Titan. He had already been defeated by Tony Stark, who gave Thanos a taste of his own medicine by blipping him and his army out of existence. The Avengers has 2 stellar post-credit moments, one that sets up future plot points with Thanos and one that's just plain funny. Once the credits are done for good, audiences get to see an extra scene where the Avengers are enjoying a well-earned shawarma meal, following up Tony Stark's joke that they should go out for shawarma earlier in the film.
You ever tried shawarma?
It's a hilarious moment, but one that audience could only catch after the film's premiere. That's because the team actually shot the post-credits scene 2 days after the premiere, making it entailing getting all 6 actors back together to sit around the table for a minute. It's a solid addition, as it shows the Avengers as a fully fledged team. Plus, who hasn't sat awkwardly in silence while grabbing a bite to eat with co-workers? Joss Whedon later admitted the idea of the scene came to him after filming a dramatic death scene for Angel, and when he and the show's actors went to get a drink after, they all just sat in silence. The Avengers all look exhausted, but none more so than Captain America, who can barely keep his head up, propping it against his fist. We later learned why Steve Rogers looked so solemn in the shawarma scene. By the time they filmed it, Chris Evans had grown a beard to film Snowpiercer. They applied makeup to cover the beard somewhat, but they needed his hand to cover the rest. Now that you know this, you won't be able to take your eyes off Cap in this post-credit scene. Post-credit scenes in Marvel movies or otherwise typically set up a sequel or provide a quick laugh. Ideally, the film's story and themes have been wrapped up, so the extra scene can just provide a simple bonus. But Thor: The Dark World breaks the mold, because the film's second post-credit scene is an absolutely crucial moment that completes the film's emotional arc. The extra scene shows Jane Foster depressed on Earth until Thor shows up, and the two embrace and kiss. The story doesn't come full circle until we get that moment of seeing Thor and Jane together, leaving us safe in the knowledge that they are going to try to make things work on Earth. It represents an evolution of the Marvel post-credits scene in that you have to stick around until the credits finish in case a major plot point gets resolved. Watching it back now, it's also clear just how vital this post-credits scene is to the entire MCU timeline. The scene follows Thor abdicating the throne of Asgard. It also establishes that Thor's on Earth by the time Avengers: Age of Ultron comes around. All in all, it feels like a scene that should have come at the very end of the film itself, before the credits show up. Despite getting introduced in the Avengers in 2012, Thanos wasn't quite ready for the big time when Avengers: Age of Ultron came out in 2015. But the franchise still wanted to build hype around the big purple guy, so the post-credit scene consists of Thanos retrieving the Infinity Gauntlet from a secure safe before saying,
Fine. I'll do it myself.
The scene clearly exists to tee up Thanos for Avengers: Infinity War, but it also raises some questions. For starters, who is Thanos talking to? No one else appears to be in the room with him. Clearly, he must be talking to the audience, letting us know that he's getting ready to join the fight himself. And when he says he'll do it himself, is he talking about taking down the Avengers, something Ultron failed to do? Later films reveal that he's actually talking about collecting the Infinity Stones, having grown fed up following the failure of Loki and Ronan the Accuser. But Thanos doesn't actually do it himself. He sends the Black Order to Earth at the beginning of Infinity War to track down both the Mind Stone and the Time Stone. After all this time watching Earth and seeing how powerful the Avengers are, he still tries to get his underlings to do his dirty work for him. It's also confusing in that the Infinity Gauntlet previously appeared in Odin's vault in Thor, but we later learn that Thanos had the gauntlet made by Eitri on Nedvelia. Later retcons explain that the Avengers: Age of Ultron post-credit scene takes place on Nedvelia, not on Asgard, but it's all still very confusing.
Odin's treasures.
Fake.
One post-credit scene that has absolutely zero payoff is the Doctor Strange scene that sees Cole Mordo steal someone's magical powers while delivering the ominous message that the world has
Too many sorcerers.
This scene certainly seems to establish that Mordo, after being mostly an ally in 2016's Doctor Strange, would be the antagonist in the sequel, likely doing something related to stealing magic. But fast forward 6 long years to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and Mordo is a complete non-factor. Technically, he does show up, but he's a variant from another reality, with Wanda Maximoff functioning as the main antagonist. The only real mention we get of the Sacred Timeline's Mordo is a throwaway line from Strange that his version tried to kill him at some point. This suggests Mordo tried to carry out his No More Sorcerers plan but failed to subdue Strange. It explains his absence, even if it is pretty anticlimactic, as it means the Doctor Strange post-credit scene sets up an encounter so insignificant the MCU didn't even bother to show it. The post-credit scene in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness also hasn't had any kind of payoff yet, though it's possible one still may be coming at some point in the future. In this scene, Strange teams up with Clea to journey to the Dark Dimension. Given how Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars will deal with the multiverse, there's a chance that universe-hopping Strange will bring Clea with him into one or both of those films. There's also a chance that Hercules, who was teased at the end of Thor: Love and Thunder, may feature in the upcoming Thor 5, which is rumored to be going in a dark direction. reception. And with the actors from Shang-Chi and the Fox X-Men films announced as part of the cast of Avengers Doomsday, it seems as though the post-credit scenes from Shang-Chi and the Marvels may pay off yet. However, other post-credit scenes seem doomed to go nowhere. Notably, Thanos' brother Eros emerges from the shadows in Eternals, but given the film's frosty reception, it doesn't seem like the MCU is interested in exploring those characters any further. The Black Knight and Blade were also teased in the post-credit scenes for Eternals, but it's unclear when or if we'll see them again, as the previously announced Blade film has experienced multiple delays during the development process.
There's only been one Blade. There's only ever gonna be one Blade.
One character who probably won't crop up again in any significant way is Kang the Conqueror and his infinite variants. A post-credits tease in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania revealed a stadium full of Kangs ready to take over the multiverse. This was back when the next Avengers movie was going to be called Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. But Marvel Studios dropped Kang actor Jonathan Majors after his legal troubles, which is why Robert Downey Jr.'s Dr. Doom will face off against the superheroes in the now titled Avengers Doomsday. Marvel would no doubt like it if everyone just forgot about all these post-credit scenes that never went anywhere. If nothing else, they serve as reminders that planning such an intricate movie franchise years in advance is not a simple task.